The stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Let's go ahead and make sure that things are warming up. We're got to make sure that we're alive and well before we kick things off into high gear. It looks like we're getting connected on YouTube. Facebook's looks like it's alive and well. Twitch is up. Let's make sure that Rumble's looking good. Oh, there's YouTube. There it is. It just popped up, which means we can go ahead and get started. Hold on. Is Twitch there yet? Come on, Twitch. Come on, Twitch. Come on. All right, there it is. I think there it is. Well, I don't know what it's doing. It takes a minute or so. We're going to get started anyways because it's just right around the corner. I can feel it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. Throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. We're grateful that you are here and with us today because we've got some news to get into. President Joe Biden came out, gave a speech today. A lot of people have been wondering where this guy has been for the most of the week this week. And he came out to talk about the pandemic. A lot of people are still, in a little bit of pandemic pandemonium status, wondering, are we going to get fired? Are we going to lose our jobs? What the hell's going on out there in the economy? A lot of questions stemming from this. And so we were hoping to hear from him about when these OSHA regulations were going to come into effect, or if there was going to be any big changes about these mandates. And he came out and spoke for a whopping 7 minutes, took no questions, did an about face, and made a beeline right for the door. So I was going to have a lot to talk about in that segment. Turns out there's not a whole lot to get into, but we are going to see what the president had to say today. Then in our second segment, we are going to change gears because this January 6th Select Committee subpoena battle is really bubbling up. The Select Committee, of course, as we know, sent a bunch of subpoenas to several of Trump's deputies and said, get your butts into Congress. We have a fake political show and we need you to be a part of it. And they denied that. They said, we're not going to come over there and play your games. And so today was the day that Steve Bannon, we all know who that is, was supposed to be in front of the Select Committee, didn't show up, and they're unhappy about it. They're going to talk about criminal contempt. We got civil contempt yesterday. Going to talk a little bit about criminal contempt today on the show in the context of Steve Bannon. We've got a letter from Benny Thompson. We've got some statements from little Adam Schiff out from California, and the list goes on. So Steve Bannon, Robert Costello is the name of his attorney, and we're going to take a look at that attorney's letter over to the Select Committee and basically understand why he's saying Steve Bannon doesn't have to respond to this, invoking executive privilege. And so we'll spend a little bit of time on that segment, a little bit of heavy lifting there, of course, but we will get into that. And then in our final segment, what a story, my goodness. Late last night, apparently a woman, a police officer, an NYPD officer, she was off duty at the time, but she walked in on what sounds like her girlfriend and maybe her lover in an apartment, was not happy with what she saw, and shot and killed her, and then wounded the lover, and was arrested in handcuffs in a Brooklyn apartment in New York City. So a wild story. We're going to take a look at what happened here. The officer's name, Yvonne Wu. She was a 5.5-year a member of the force, and so the press came out. There was a press briefing by the NYPD breaking down this whole story, and it's a juicy one. So we're going to get into that and more. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away over there, sharing pictures, beautiful pictures of sunset and fire. Well, that's beautiful. That was from Kay Sell saying that she's out there I think listening to the show, watching the sunset, watching the fire. Wow, it's beautiful. Yeah, it sounds amazing. Paula MK's over there. Look 2G. John Halgren's in the house, not Josh. We have Phil and Flyover. I'm Not Gas. Mustang Jeff. T. Fieldman's in the house, along with Paula MK and many others. Shout outs to YouTube over there. Curtis Bartles there, along with Anything Goes. Patriot and the Shib bag holder. Shib bag, Shibu Inu, I think is the crypto coin there. Not that this is financial advice. We have Cool Guy, 18,000, Andrew Richardson. Sarah Brown's in the house. Sarah Brown was correcting one of my typos, which is totally fair. I call out typos on this show. You can call out my garbage typos anytime you want. Shout out Sarah Brown for that. And there was somebody else who called me out previously. Several people called me out on my typos, which is perfectly appropriate. I don't even get mad about it. I should be called out. Damn it! Why are they in there? All right. If you miss the show, if you miss a day, you just kind of got to bail out. You hate the first segment. You say, enough with this one, Rob. Already, I got to get out of here. You want to get a clip, you want to come back and see a segment, the place to do that is over at the Clips channel. And I have to communicate again that I'm still not real sure what I'm doing with all the different YouTube channels yet. I had a meeting today with an organization where I get some mentoring, and there was somebody there who is very, very successful on YouTube, gigantic channel, help coaches everybody else. And he basically, this is like the third time I've talked to him. He's like, you're doing everything wrong. All right. That's why your channel's not growing. That's why you're stagnating. You're doing everything wrong. And so change everything. And so I'm like, I really don't want to do that, but I have to think about that this weekend. So I'm plugging the Clips channel right now, but I don't know if we're going to keep the Clips channel. So we'll see. We'll come back and visit that. But if you're looking for the Clips at the moment, that's the channel that they're on. So it's going to be one of those shows, I think. It's been an interesting day. All right, so let's get into the news, shall we? President Biden came out of the bunker today and had some things to say. Didn't talk long, 7 minutes, didn't take any questions, turned right around, made a beeline for the door. And I've been wondering, where the hell has this guy been? I mean, literally, I follow his calendar so I could do show prep from time to time. It's a good idea to know where the leader of the free world is because he's kind of a big newsmaker. If he's going to come out and say something interesting, well, I got to be on top of that because I got to come and be here with you and detail the news. And so I follow Joe Biden regularly. I take a look at his calendar basically every morning. And you can see here that on Monday, nothing. Right now, Monday was a holiday for a lot of people. I was working. Many of you were working, but Joe Biden, of course, was not. Monday, October 11th, out of town. He leaves Delaware, comes back to D.C. and the White House at 4:20. All right. It's a holiday, and so you give him a break on that one. So he's going to get back to work busy on Tuesday, right? Not really. You can see here 8:45 virtual meeting to discuss close coordination there. And then they get the daily brief, which is at 10:15, so that's great. And then nothing, gone for the rest of the day. 12 o'clock, there was an in-town pool call this is for the press. And then at 2 p.m., press briefing by Jenn Psaki. So we only heard from Jenn Psaki on Tuesday. And you say, okay, well, he was still hungover from the weekend. He, something was going on there. So he needed a day off of his day off. So he comes back then on Wednesday and the calendar looked a little bit more full. Here you can see he gets the president's briefing again, and that was early in the morning, and then he gets a press briefing, or we have a press briefing, so he's not doing that. He signs into law an act to designate a September 11th National Memorial Trail Route. Amazing. That probably took a lot of work there. Nothing at 12 except for press stuff. Jenn Psaki come out at 1 p.m. again, and then at 1:45, the president then meets with senior officials and stakeholders to address the transportation supply chain bottleneck. So that meeting lasts for, 15 minutes because by 2:20, he now has to go out there and then deliver remarks on the efforts, right? So from 1:45 to 2:20, apparently he's meeting with them. Probably has to go, get his face powdered up so that he can get out there in front of the cameras at 2:20. And so not a real rigorous meeting, really, to talk about the stakeholders, to discuss collective efforts to address global transportation. So they rouse him up from whatever he was doing that day. 2:20, he's supposed to come out and give a speech. He does, and you're going, well, we're seeing headlines all over the place that there's global inflation that's wrecking everybody's pocketbooks. We see shipping containers stacking up at the shores because of literal supply chain problems. There are bottlenecks all over the entire country. And so people are saying Christmas is already canceled. Like there's nothing we're going to do about that because nobody's going to have any goods. Chip makers are, running low on basically everything. They're telling us that Heating, electricity prices are going to be up dramatically over this winter break, and the list goes on and on. So you go, all right, so finally, we're going to hear from the president. We got a lot of problems going on in this country right now. Presumably, he's going to come out and give us a long speech and take some questions, right? Wrong. That didn't happen. He came out after his grueling 15-minute speech and then was out here for 12 minutes. You can see right here, 12 minutes. And, God bless America, the rail workers, longshoremen, truckers, all of it, blah, 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 which I don't disagree with, but what's he doing about it? Then he says, thank you all so very much. And you see this very signature beeline walking towards the door signature move that Joe Biden is getting really good at. So you go, okay, 12 minutes, no questions on that one. So then I take a look at the calendar today, doing show prep this morning, and I'm saying, he's got to be doing something today, right? It's Thursday. Like, the week's almost over. He's not taking the whole week off, is he? So his schedule looks, really busy today. My goodness. So he gets another press briefing at 9:30. Likes to start early. President, vice president, they get another briefing from the COVID response team from 10:30. So another from 10:30 to whoever knows how long that goes. Then we get an update from the president. Looks like it was supposed to be at 11:30, but that didn't happen for whatever reason. President and Vice President Kamala Harris, they have a lunch together. That lunch, then something happens. He comes back out at 12:30, and then he gives us a speech, an update on the COVID-19 response and the vaccine program. Oh, it's going to be really, really important that we get some details on this. He's going to give us that speech before he goes and meets with somebody from Kenya, the president over there, and then we get our standard Jenn Psaki cleanup, the press briefing that happens after that. And you go, okay, good, because we're talking about mandates. We're talking about OSHA. We're talking about rolling the program out so that people can start suing his butt and stopping it from ever going into effect. Everybody's waiting, salivating at the mouth to get started on these lawsuits so that people can keep their jobs and continue to feed their families, that important stuff. But Joe Biden really didn't give us much of that. He kind of spoke for 7 minutes. That's it. No questions again. Meanwhile, we're hearing rumors that pilots and different people in different supply chain sectors are all just kind of thumbing their noses up at the administration, saying we're not going to do anything. We're just going to not even get on the airplanes and fly them for you people anymore. And we're seeing backtracking taking place from CEOs and other leaders in these different industries. Saw a headline this morning that the Chicago Police Union, the Fraternal Order of Police, he came out and he's telling his union members to openly stand up and protest the vaccine mandates in direct contradiction to Lori Lightfoot. And so you're seeing this cascade across the entire country. What if we have 50% less police officers in Chicago or in Villanueva's Los Angeles County? There could be some pretty serious problems, Joe Biden. So what are you going to do about this? Are you going to give us some information? What's going on, brother? We've been waiting for some guidance on this. You said well over a month ago that there was going to be mandates now for everybody who has even more than 100 employees. Where are we at with it? Here's Joe Biden.
Let's be clear. Vaccination requirements should not be another issue that divides us. That's why we continue to battle the misinformation that's out there. And companies and communities are stepping up as well to combat the misinformation. Southwest Airlines, at the head of the pilots union and its CEO, dismissed critics who claim vaccination mandates contributed to flight disruptions. School board members, religious leaders, and doctors across the country are fighting misinformation and educating people about the importance of vaccines. All of these efforts are going to help us continue moving the dial to eliminate this disease.
Yeah, it's misinformation again. It's always the misinformation. They want to clamp down on the information. You're not allowed to talk about anything that extends outside of the standard narrative. We're seeing it all over the place, and the walls are closing in everywhere you look. YouTube, every stinking month, it feels like, comes out with a new policy about something you can't talk about. And so you start to ask yourself, why is that, right? If they had the winning argument on all of these issues, it's been 10 months since the vaccine started rolling out. Joe Biden got his back in December. So what are we battling with now? We're still battling people who are saying things like what? Horse dewormer? Which is what the FDA said, which is what CNN, Anderson Cooper said. They were making that allegation regarding Joe Rogan. And that was clearly medical misinformation. He didn't take horse dewormer, and they were talking about it. FDA was posting tweets about that. So who's really spreading the medical misinformation? there, Joe. Other people just have standard questions. Other people who are opposing the vaccine mandates aren't even necessarily doing so because they have some misinformation to proffer about the vaccines in the first place. In other words, people aren't even arguing about the vaccines. They're just arguing about the mandates. Many people who have gotten the vaccines are still oppositional to the mandates because that is where the problem comes in. I have many people in my life, many of them vaccinated and proud of it. They start to see these mandates come rolling in and they're like going, oh, yeah, I totally disagree with that. Okay, well, yeah, that's what we've been saying is going to be happening over the last 18 months. Well, welcome to the party. So here is Joe Biden now coming out. Misinformation is the problem. The vaccines should not be dividing us. Meanwhile, it's his policies. It's not the misinformation that is causing any of the division. I have never seen so much division in this country. We have people literally saying we're not going to fly airplanes anymore. We have police officers saying, no, we're not going to serve and protect anymore, or we're not going to enforce the mandates so that we can enable our team to continue to serve and protect is the better way to phrase that. People are having to file lawsuits against their own governments. In the case of John Halgren, the Naperville firefighters, the list goes on and on. People are coming out of pockets because of the division that his policies have created. And there was another way to do this. It didn't have to be all about mandates. It didn't have to be, we're going to take our boots and shove it down your throats unless you comply. Never had to be that way. But he started it. He came in, promised a bunch of unity, and now he's blaming the misinformation, the people who are questioning our government that has been consistently wrong month after month after month, talking about misinformation. His own administration came out and was screaming about this. Oh, we won, success, victory is out. Put your masks on, take your masks off, put them back on again. And the science changes and all of that. Okay, but the misinformation, the messaging from this administration has been horrendous. Joe Biden got his booster shot still wearing a mask on. How is that for messaging? He's well and protected, but he's got to wrap himself in bubble wrap everywhere he goes. All right, so what else does he have for us? Oh, vaccines for the kids. Those are going to get ready here very soon, in case you were worried about that. Those are coming. Federal government already has them ordered. Here's Joe.
Now, I know parents out there are anxiously waiting for a vaccine for children ages 5 to 11. The good news is the FDA and outside experts from the CDC are set to make its determination as to whether the vaccine will be authorized for that age range in the next few weeks.
Okay, good.
If authorized, we are ready. We have purchased enough vaccines for all children between the ages of 5 and 11. The United States. And it'll be convenient for parents to get their children vaccinated at trusted locations, and families will be able to sleep easier at night knowing their kids are protected as well.
So, did he just say that they already purchased all of them, right? So they already purchased all the doses that they're going to need before it's even been approved. So it's like we all know it's going to get approved. Yeah, because you already bought them and you are the government. So the government's not going to deny itself permission to do what you want them to do. Everybody's rolling in lockstep with all of this, even though, well, you can get into that on a different platform, I guess. That's Joe Biden over there. Now, he was out there for 7 minutes, so you basically heard the whole speech, not much else in there. And he didn't take any questions again. Drives me nuts. And, listen, I understand. I saw over there in the chat that, yeah, sometimes there is, Donald Trump, for example, didn't always take every question. That's not what I'm asking for. But Donald Trump would at least get out there and mix it up with people from time to time. And in many cases, we talked about it on the show, and they were incredibly good mixes. He would get out there and start screaming at them, and they'd scream back at him. And very interesting, mixes between the president and the press. And you might not have liked Donald Trump's answers, but at least he was going in there and having these conversations with these people. Joe Biden cannot do it, regardless, that he just can't do it. Here is Charlie Spearing over on Twitter, says he walks away as reporters shout questions about the coronavirus. He spoke less than 7 minutes, wasn't even a full 7 minutes. And for some reason, they keep setting the stage this way. I don't know why they keep doing this. You'll notice, continue to watch this though. Okay. So this has changed, right? It used to be over in the White House. I think this is now in the fake stage that they've created for the fake president. He legitimately won. I'm not saying he's not the legitimate president, but it's basically a fake administration at this point. We already saw that when he was getting the jab booster, that there were lights everywhere, and they created this whole stage, and everybody was making a bunch of hay about that, because in the windows behind him there was like the blooming rose garden out of the White House. And you're going, that's not how it looks right now. So people have some questions about all of it. Anyways, when he was giving these little press conferences over at the White House, remember how far he had to walk when he would turn around on the podium? I didn't get a clip of it, but I should have. But he had to walk like a long way, because the podium was right in the middle of the room. It's a giant room, the East Room, whatever it is. And so when he would turn and make his beeline for the door, he had to go like 35 steps. It's like a long walk. It's painful just to watch it, and the reporters are going, "Oh, watch this loser just walk away." And they're zooming in on it. And Fox News had several of those. And so what did they do? They moved it over to this room, which is this fake stage, and they have these fake walls now. And you can see the walls are closing in on the podium. You notice that? The walls are a lot closer to the podium, so he doesn't have as far to walk. And so continue to watch this. I think that these walls are just going to keep, slowly encroaching. And maybe they'll just make a trap door at some point. So when Joe Biden's done, they just go boop, and he's just gone. Like sort of like in the Batman movies, when he's like, the bat signal, and he presses that button in his chair and he shoots down the chute. Joe Biden is not Batman. In fact, that maneuver, that trap door, might put him in the hospital. So that's a bad idea. So let's take a look. This was a close-up of what the president was doing. You can see the walls sort of getting moved in closer so he can just turn around. It's like 3-4 steps, maybe. Not much there. And so do we have a clip of this? Oh yeah, here it is. Here's Joe Biden wrapping up his 6.5 minute press briefing today.
I've said many times, God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, decided on an FDA commissioner. Non-deal workers on strike.
Okay, so that's it. I was hoping for a little bit more out of the guy. So it's a short segment. Let's see if you have anything to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Pull up some questions over here. Let's see if we have any that have come in. We do. We have former LEO says, I believe that he has to periodically return to his coffin. Yeah, because, when you've been in Washington for 47 years, Joe Biden's actually in politician years about 147. And so they have to keep him sort of, propped up on amphetamines and probably the blood of children, which is why he's always sniffing them. And yeah, he probably had to come out of the coffin for a little bit. Perry Masonary says, Bunker Biden didn't say much. What about Hunter? Where's the 3 or 4 laptops? Would be a good question. Would like to know more about that. We have former LEO says, let's see, talking about the cost of petroleum products, I use propane for cooking and heating, which is up to $1 a gallon over last winter's high. Can't wait to see how high it goes. I have solar for electric. Haven't paid a PG&E bill in 7 years. That's from former LEO. Well, that sounds really great. I've been thinking and reading a lot more about that sort of redundancy in your systems. Oh, scary thoughts, though. Misinformation is here. That's dangerous. Says, misinformation just means accurate information that Democrats don't like. Trust me, I would know. Misinformation has had a bad time dealing with the Dems. John Halgren says, Chicago PD and FD stuck together, and Groot, Mayor Lightfoot, just backed down. Don't give up, folks. We're going to have to do an update on that tomorrow, John. Yes, because Chicago, I saw that story today. Just back down, Mayor Lightfoot. I looked Mayor Lightfoot up before I hopped on the show today. I didn't see that, but I'm sure you know better than I do, since you're living it right now. Good luck, John. Keep us posted. I'll look into that. Mustang Jeff says, Joe Biden only promised unity for the Democrats. To the heck with the rest of us. Good to see you, Mustang. Another one from Sergeant Bob says, new show, Biden in Wonderland. Who is the voice behind the curtain? Sort of the Scooby-Doo reveal. It's Barack Obama. I like it, Sergeant Bob. I think that there's some truth to that. Monster One says, Jenn Psaki had the nerve to say people don't compare prices to 2 years ago. These people are so clueless. They really think people don't care that gas prices have doubled. They do. I can guarantee you that they do. Right? Just look around anecdotally, right? People everywhere going, oh gosh, you see how much gas is? You see how much those things cost? Go to the grocery store, they're out of stuff. It's wild. People are noticing. People are not happy about it. And his poll numbers are going to continue to plummet. Former LEO says, did you see the clip of Rogan kicking a Gupta's A? The truth shall set you free. I did see it. I retweeted it. It was extremely energizing. I watched it. Remember, we got a strike on this channel for defending Joe Rogan. We played the clip of Anderson Cooper specifically saying that Joe Rogan took horse dewormer, and it was on the Chiron on the bottom of the CNN live, whatever the show he does. And Joe Rogan, if you missed it, I retweeted it earlier this morning. He just wiped the floor with Gupta, Sanjay Gupta. He's a doctor over at CNN. He's like the doctor over there. And he says, are you feeling a little bit bad that your network said that I took something that I didn't take, right? It's a medical lie. Are you okay with that? And he's he's trying to, and Joe Rogan did not let him squirrel away from that. He pinned him. Nope. One more time. Nope. One more time. And it was really good. You can see why Joe Rogan does well, because he pushes people on those questions, man. And he should have. Monster One says, I'm sorry. Who are these people who really believe that COVID is some serious risk to kids? Joe Biden, apparently. Yeah, even Sanjay Gupta on Rogan's channel said that, follow the CDC guidance on all that stuff. Dr. Jill Biden says 7 minutes. I wish I've never gotten 7 minutes out of him. That's from Dr. Jill Biden. That sounds like a marital problem. That's beyond the scope of this show. Former LEO says, why doesn't the press boycott Psaki and her lies and her condescending statements? Because they're on the same team there, former LEO. They're working together. They want the same outcome. So why would they push her too hard? Can you imagine if Donald Trump didn't take any questions and 2 press conferences, like important stuff, and was in a bunker the rest of his time? No, it'd be bad. It would be ridiculous. I'd be like, where the hell is that guy? Geomancy Games, subscribe on YouTube, says, I've nothing more to say that hasn't already been said about this fraud of a president. So what are your thoughts on Command & Conquer 3, Red Alert 3? Arguably my favorite CNC. It's hard for me to remember all of them. CNC 3, is that the one? I remember 2. It's hard for me to remember that. Let's see if we can just pull this up real quick. CNC, for you stick to the issues crowd. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Yeah, this is a really good one. Yeah, this is what it looked like. Yeah, this is a good one. The one with the commando on the screen, Red Alert 3, very good one. Yeah, I agree. It was a good one. Really good graphics. I think the one after that, wasn't it Generals? They kind of botched it after that one. Disappointing. I really wish that there were more games like that because they're my favorites. Sanjay Gupta's here. Yeah, it says, Joe Rogan invited me on his show and then assaulted me with facts and logic. It says, I feel so violated. All I wanted to do is get everyone vaccinated and safe anyway. Just that. My feelings were hurt. Joe's probably racist too. Yes, that's why he attacked me like that. Because he's a racist. Yeah. Anytime that you're losing an argument, just always default to the R word. It's always applicable. Doesn't even matter what color their skin is, what color your skin is. Just say it. Because it's true now. It encompasses everything. Peely Wally says, hey, Rob, the way the people in power are dealing with COVID is a joke. It's a slap in the face to the people that died to the plague, the Spanish flu, and so on. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's gotten to the point where it's well beyond healthcare. It has become a political, almost religious thing now, and they are trying to villainize everybody else who does not even acquiesce to their line of thinking. So that's exactly what Joe Biden came out and did, right? He said, we don't want the vaccine to divide people. We don't want division here. Okay, well, it's very easy. All you have to do is remember that the default here in this country, I don't care about the other countries, in America, is freedom. The default is we start with freedom. You don't mandate people to do anything except the very limited things we've already acquiesced to, like pay taxes, right? And some of those very basic things, which I even have a problem with those. But the point is that what they're trying to do is make something into something that it is not entirely, and then justify all sorts of really draconian regulations on the back of this thing that they want to promote. Where am I at? This is from Speech Unleashed, says, if we really want to know what is really being done, we need to see the calendars of Biden's aides. Instead of Biden's calendar, As to the FDA approval, remember, 2 top vaccine officials at the FDA, they're resigning from their positions due to pressure to move forward with the booster vaccines without FDA approval, as well as with the CDC's involvement in the vaccine approval process. Pretty sure the same pressure is happening with vaccine approval for children. Yeah, I mean, it's the same pattern, isn't it? Joe Biden was saying everybody was going to get boosters back on September 20th before any of these decisions were made. It's the same thing happening right now. Oh, we already purchased enough for every single kid 5 to 12. Oh, so do you suspect that the FDA is going to come out and say, well, all that's a waste. Well done. No, of course not. It's a foregone conclusion. We have Captain Jim saying, Rob, what you're seeing with the pilots, allegedly, police, U.S. postal workers, etc., over the vaccine mandates is why we need unions. I know you've been critical of the police unions. You've had some good reasons. Unions do have some major drawbacks, but all in all, I think they're a good thing. The freedom flu would never make so much as a splash in a world of individual contributors. Just one grumpy captain's opinion. You know, it is very interesting, Captain Jim. You have strange bedfellows in this entire conversation that we're having right now. And I admit that, right? And I've sort of recognized that myself. I'm like, man, these unions, they're really standing strong against these unfair things that are happening to them. And it has caused me to sort of reevaluate that to some degree. I think you're seeing that in not just the unions, but also different areas of life. So, for example, right, you can even see this with the vaccine mandates. You have sort of strange new alignments between, let's say, even BLM, right? BLM was an organization that was 100% Democratic. They were going Democrats. They were playing patty cake with each other. Even though Joe Biden is the godfather of the modern criminal justice system, he's the worst. He was sort of in cahoots with BLM because they were both unified against Donald Trump. It really turned into something that had nothing to do with justice reform at some point. It had everything to do with Trump reform. And so they were very much aligned in that regard. But now BLM is taking a look at these vaccine mandates and they're saying, wait a minute, this is racist as hell. Why is the government telling us that we have to do this? And you're seeing NBA players, you're seeing people in popular culture, and you're seeing a bigger expansion of people who might not regularly align with conservatives or with, libertarians or small-minded anti-mandate people. They're all sort of identifying maybe people who are of the BLM contingent, and they're saying, well, we kind of have this thing in common. We don't like the mandates. We don't like the mandates. And they would disagree on virtually everything else. But on this issue, they have been unified because the government is disrespecting both camps. Same type of thing is happening here. I think that the unions are doing a good thing here. I mean, I can't argue against that, Captain Jim. I think it's a very valid point, and I appreciate you sharing it. It's something I've thought a lot about. We have Thunder7 says, did all your viewers see the video of Joe Obama getting his booster shot? It was filled with a fake White House movie set. By the way, I wonder how your thing went at City Hall. Did you get re-elected? Good question. I did not. The whole thing was a wild situation. I talked a little bit about it over on Locals. We did a morning show. I think that was yesterday or the day before. Yesterday, I think, at 10:30. We did a morning show. I'm going to start doing a lot more Locals content and Rumbles content. And we're going to, talk about YouTube in the future. But I did talk a little bit about it. I'm very curious about what happened there. And so there may be some additional things that I have to investigate on this whole story. I mean, it was really, really strange. It was like I was a dead man walking. I walked in there and I got, it was a unanimous decision against me. Wild. And think about this. I had already served a term. I was the chairman. I was nominated to be the chairman. We successfully reconfirmed or nominated, suggested 2 judges during my tenure. Great feedback from everybody. The meetings went very well. I went in there. They did not want me on the board. The reason being, in my estimation, is because this term we have to reappoint the presiding judge. The city council does not want a criminal defense lawyer on the board if we have to elect a presiding judge. And so this was a big, big change. Some very interesting things happened right before my reconfirmation hearing. And so they brought in 2 additional candidates kind of out of the blue. Very interesting stuff went down. I walked in there and it was not good. But it was an eye-opening experience. I'm going to continue to look into sort of what happened on the back end there. And maybe I'll have an update, maybe even a video about the shenanigans that were coming out of Scottsdale. But I did not get reappointed. I was already serving on it. I had completed my first term. Should have been an easy walk-in and get reappointed. But every single person voted against me. I was the only criminal defense attorney running. We had to repick the presiding judge. I smell something fishy going on there. And it's not just because I lost, right? You should see... You should see how the whole thing went down. It was really, really interesting. Thanks for asking about it. Yes, we did talk about the Joe Obama booster shot. It was filmed in that. Yeah, it was filmed in that little stage with the walls and the everything. It's weird. I don't know why they do that, other than it's easy to maneuver Joe around in there. We have another one from Look2G says, "Hey, Rob, great show as usual. Based on what you said earlier about possibly changing your platform up a bit, if I had a cool show like yours, or maybe like, I don't know, the Rubin Report, I might consider focusing less on Biden's faults and more how all of this is Trump's faults. No strikes on YouTube, CNN, MSNBC will back you up. The feds won't go after you." That was so good, Look2G, because it sounds like you're going to give me some really solid advice. And you did. I mean, that's great advice. If you want a giant show and you don't want any problems with YouTube or CNN, yeah, you just got to blame Trump every day on the show. That's it. It's very simple. It's great advice, Look2G. It's going to be difficult for me to follow that, but it isn't wrong. It would be a lot easier if I could just get down here and just say, oh, the indictments and Donald Trump and the worst thing that has ever happened to American democracy every day. Now, some people who are on the other side of the aisle who jump on the chats and, poke a little fun at me over there on YouTube, they think that that's what I do, obviously, come out here and just beat up Biden every day, which is true. We do beat him up a lot, and I don't have any shame about that. Ty Livin is here, says the former vice president doesn't take questions because he can't answer the Hunter questions. Supply chain, we're seeing shortages here in Thailand at the grocery stores from American Foods products. That's great. So you have them over there as well. It's going to be a problem. Going to be a problem coming up here, I think, in the short term. We have Monster One says, hey, good to see you, Ty Livin. Thanks for being here from Thailand. It's amazing. We have Monster One says, I know the Sanja comment was a joke, but he actually went on CNN and said he feared for his life, went on Rogan. What? Are you serious? He said he was afraid Rogan was going to jump over the table and strangle him. How delusional are these people? Like Rogan isn't a professional. Did he actually say that? All right, we're going to have to do a segment on this tomorrow. I wanted to see what his reaction... I was going to do a segment on this today, but I wanted to see what his reactions were, and they weren't ready yet by the time we did the show. I wanted to see what Gupta had to say about it, because he posted some dumb tweet online saying, I went into the lion's den. And you go, it's Joe Rogan's show. What are you talking about? It's like the most chill, casual conversation with anybody on the planet. Right? You come in, you just kind of BS for 3 hours, you get into some news, you have some whiskey, smoke some weed, and you have a nice conversation for 3 hours. And there's no pressure. Just kind of go in. Yeah, no, this is what I believe. This is where I stand. Let's really dig into the issues. It's why people tune in. It's why it's one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Going into the lion's den? What are you talking about? You're like a 35-year, 40-year educated doctor with like 37 letters after your name. Lion's den. Joe Rogan. Now, this is not to belittle Joe Rogan at all, right? He is incredibly talented at what he does, and he's a very smart guy. And I'd love to go on his show someday because I got a lot to talk about. But it would be something where you're just going. I mean, you're a medical doctor with all of these degrees and credentials. You should be able to go in there and talk medical circles around anybody, not just Joe Rogan, anybody, even other doctors. And he couldn't do that. It was pretty bad. If you haven't listened to the Joe Rogan with Alex Berenson on the COVID stuff, that's not YouTube friendly, of course, but it is over on Spotify. And I can't believe he actually interviewed Alex Berenson. Alex Berenson is a New York Times bestselling author, went to Yale, has been doing a deep dive on a lot of the vaccine stuff. And I've read 2 of his books, one on the vaccines and one on the masks. Really short reads, like 50 pages on Amazon. I think like $3.99. For the ebook, but he went on Joe Rogan's show. They had a very, very interesting interview, 3 hours going through all the COVID numbers, pulling up the studies on the screen. It's good. We have another one. Perry Masonary says, sorry for being small-minded, but I agree with Captain Jim. Just saying I'm a terrible person. Listen, you know, I'm open to sort of expanding my thoughts on some of these things. I do rip on police unions all the time. When I look at problems, I can easily trace them back to police unions. But, you know, I think what I am most interested in is decentralization, where people have a lot of freedom in different industries to do a lot of different things the way. So for example, like if we only have one police force, then I think a union makes sense, because you've got one government monopoly and you've got to sort of, you know, you have no choice. There is no free market there. You can't go to a different police department. But if you're talking about some of these other corporations, as long as we, you know, make sure that they don't burgeon into pseudo monopolies or actual monopolies, then you let the free market decide on a lot of those other issues. But you have police departments and fire departments and other government entities where there really is no choice. What if there were? Would unions still be as needed, as valued? I don't know. I think that's where my distinction would lay, just to dive into that issue a little bit further. Sergeant Bob says, wild thought, if you get another run for an election, maybe you can win over the local PDs like you have us, the retired, present, former officers, for support. Yeah, maybe. You know, the whole government thing is a wild experience. It was very interesting. I was on this board for 3 years, and I you know, I'm not sure what my future holds in this regard, but I think I might be able to have more influence right here behind the camera than I would ever on a government board. And so I'm rethinking some of those things. But it's a good thought there, Sergeant Bob, and I appreciate it. Also, from chairman of the board, he says, in Sanjay's tween, he said he accepted the invite to go on the show against the advice of many friends. But on the show, they made it clear that Gupta was the one who reached out to Rogan to be on the show. The most interesting thing to me was that many times it was hard to determine who the expert on the topic was, Joe or the doctor. Yeah, we're going to have to do a full segment on this, because it's good. It's well worth it. We'll do that probably tomorrow, because I got a strike for this, for defending Joe Rogan. They wanted to stop us here on YouTube for 7 days. Can you believe that? Outrageous. So we'll dig into that. Very good questions and comments over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Okay, so we're going to move into the next segment. Let's see what's coming up. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about some Steve Bannon action here and the January 6th Select Committee. The January 6th Select Committee set a deadline for today, October 14th, and they said, we want a number of Donald Trump's deputies, the top deputies, people like Steve Bannon, to come to Congress and sit their butts down for a formal deposition. Remember, they wanted all of the documents provided over to the Select Committee a week before, on October 7th, and this is what the letter looks like that came over from Benny Thompson. You see him down there in the bottom right. We went through this letter previously on the channel. You'll see this went back out September 23rd. Of course, this is the infamous Steve Bannon. Got a very big following over on the War Room podcast. And this letter came from Benny Thompson over to Bannon. And we've gone through it. We don't need to go through it again, but basically said, listen, by October 7th, I want all of the documents that we've asked for. And by October 14th, you better get your butt in here for a deposition. This went back on September 23rd, and we started to hear some rumors that Bannon and Kash Patel and many other of Donald Trump's sort of, you know, second in commands to some degree were not going to go, not going to hear from them. They are going to be denying the subpoenas. They're not giving you any documents, and they're not showing up for the depositions either. Well, when the January 6th Select Committee, when you have Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney and little Adam Schiff over from California, well, they started to throw a temper tantrum. In fact, on CNN yesterday, they were unhappy about this, warning that there may be some serious repercussions for this. Let's listen in and see what they have to say.
Bannon is scheduled to appear for a deposition on Thursday. And if he does indeed make good on his threat not to show, just how fast could a criminal referral happen? Well, let's take a listen.
Tell us.
Days, weeks, months in terms of when the criminal referral would come?
Well, it will come very fast. If people refuse to cooperate and have no basis for the refusal, it will come very fast.
Oh, okay, so
and
days.
Schiff noted that unlike the past 4 years, Democrats are now, of course, in charge of the House and the Justice Department. While Trump was in office, it was a lot easier for advisors like Bannon to get away with obfuscation because Attorney Generals Sessions and Barr would not pursue criminal contempt. But now the decision on whether to pursue proceedings will go to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Now, Schiff would not comment on whether the team has already started drafting a criminal referral for Steve Bannon, but it is expected that the committee will wait at least until the end of the week after the deadlines have passed before pursuing any additional recourse against any witnesses who don't show up.
All right, so you can see they're a little excited about that. Now, Adam Schiff was not somebody who was willing to give them a strict date on this, right? A lot of people, if you recall, remember that guy over from the Lincoln Project, whatever his name was? He said something that he got the inside scoop that this whole thing was a sham, that he knew because he had talked to the insiders that the January 6th Select Committee was just going to be a big dog and pony show. We're going to see a bunch of, meaningless activity, but ultimately nothing's going to go anywhere. And then Liz Cheney said, oh, no, Lincoln Project co-founder, that's not true at all. We mean serious business here. But when Adam Schiff goes on CNN, he can't really communicate, give them a deadline. He's weeks, months, days. What are we going to do here, Adam? And it's going to come quickly. We'll see if that happens or if this is all just political posturing. Remember, they already impeached Donald Trump over the January 6th stuff. That's already been done. Already had a full trial on that. Didn't go anywhere. So let's hear from Adam Schiff again. Now he's outside the Capitol floor. We're gonna hear from them. Then we're gonna actually dig into the press statement from the Select Committee as well as Bannon's response. Here is Adam Schiff.
We're not messing around. If
Not
people
messing
don't
around.
show up, if people don't provide the documents they're compelled to, we intend to take up criminal contempt and refer to the Justice Department, and we expect that it will be prosecuted. So we intend to move quickly.
All right, so they're going to move quickly. That's from Adam Schiff. And then, we woke up today. It's October 14th, and Steve Bannon was not there at the deposition. So 10:30 this morning, the Select Committee decided to start some serious business. They posted on Twitter, they say, breaking. The chairman of this fake committee, Benny Thompson, announces that they're going to move forward with proceedings and they're going to refer Mr. Bannon for criminal contempt. Full statement is here, posted October 14th from Benny Thompson. You saw him earlier. He says, quote, Mr. Bannon has declined to cooperate with the Select Committee, instead hiding behind the former president's insufficient blanket and vague statements regarding privileges. We're going to read Bannon's statement here in a minute. We reject this position entirely, he says. Select Committee is not going to tolerate defiance to our subpoenas. So we must move forward with proceedings, refer Mr. Bannon for criminal contempt. I've notified the Select Committee. We're going to convene for a business meeting on Tuesday. So that's next week, which is the first question. You met today. You had everybody in there today. You were sitting around prepared for the deposition, weren't you? You had a full table there. Steve Bannon didn't show up. What do you do as a committee? If you're a judge, do you know how this works? If you're a judge in court, Robert, where's your defendant? Judge, he's not here right now. I'm trying to get a hold of him. Can't find him anywhere. Okay, we're going to give him 10 minutes. Very good, Judge. I run out of the courtroom. Where the hell is the client? Why you call the office. Everybody's texting, phoning, email. Where is he? Don't know. Maybe he went to Mexico, which has happened in my career. What does the judge do? Well, they just say, oh, well, it's been 10 minutes. He's not here. Guess what happens? Warrant issued for his arrest. That's the end of the case. Case is on hold. There's a warrant out for your arrest, and it gets referred over immediately, right? And so this is Congress we're talking about, which is sort of a clown show, not like an actual court of law, but the concept is the same. If somebody doesn't show up when they're ordered, there are repercussions there immediately. And so what they're going to do is just form another business meeting on Tuesday and then have a vote about a contempt report. So, all right. So maybe the co-founder of the Lincoln Project is right. Maybe this whole thing is just kind of self-gratifying. The Select Committee will then use every tool at its disposal to get the information it seeks. Witnesses who try to stonewall the Select Committee will not succeed. All witnesses are required to provide the information they possess so that the committee can get to the facts. We're grateful to the many individuals who are already voluntarily complying with our requests. We're moving ahead quickly to get answers for the American people and to secure the future of American democracy, because what happened on January 6th was almost the end of it, as you know. If you missed that, man, it was a close call. Yeah, it was almost the end of America that day. And so Benny Thompson's going to give us a little bit of background, refers to some law, says that any person who willfully refuses to provide testimony, including committees of the House, is potentially liable for contempt under Congress. It's a crime, may result in a fine, could be between 1 and 12 months imprisonment. He's referencing over here U.S. Code Contempt of Congress, he says, begins by a formal action by the Select Committee, which they're going to adopt the contempt report. If witness fails to appear or produce documents or any of that stuff, then the Select Committee is going to write a report that documents the inquiry. So they're going to write a letter, and then they're going to attempt to accommodate the witness's production, and the failure to do so is going to be noted. The report also contains the text of the resolution. After that happens, it's referred to the House for a vote. And if so, then the Speaker then certifies the report and sends it over to the District of Columbia. Then it is the duty of the U.S. Attorney to bring the matter before a grand jury for its action. So did you hear how many steps there are? Like 6 different steps, literally. So we'll see where this goes. And we're going to take a look at some history. CNN gave us a little bit of context here, talking about why this maybe is not going to go anywhere. Adam Schiff says, we've said it before, we'll say it again. We're not messing around here. People with relevant information must comply with our lawful subpoenas. If they don't, we're going to use all the tools at our disposal, including criminal contempt, which, we just read that, Adam. We know. Now, here's Rick Wilson. This is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project that was really upset. He was sort of ringing the bell, saying this was not even a serious thing earlier this week. He says, okay, day four of this select committee. Bannon still faces absolutely no pressure, no sanction or action from 1-6. Swiftly consider, they said. You people still think you're in the before times. So this guy is really upset about it. Another attorney says, why is the January 6th committee, this is Andrew LaFleur, why are they waiting until Tuesday to vote on contempt? You're meeting today. Why not vote on it today? It's another lawyer who is saying the same thing that I am, right? It's like, yeah, you're already there. They didn't show up. Why not? You going to do anything about that? Well, no, because there's probably not much they can do. CNN gave us a history of criminal contempt cases, and they note, as severe as criminal contempt sounds, the House choice to use the Justice Department may be more of a warning shot than a solution. Holding Bannon in criminal contempt through a prosecution could take years. A historic criminal contempt cases, they've been derailed by appeals and acquittals. Stanley Brand, the former House General Counsel, okay, so somebody who was an actual lawyer for the House, says that they're in a box in a way. Any way they go, it's a legal Donnybrook. Potentially that will take time. Congress almost never faces a recalcitrant witness, forces a recalcitrant witness into testifying through prosecution, according to several longtime Washington attorneys familiar with this. EPA official back during the Reagan years was the last person indicted for criminal contempt of Congress. D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, it took 8 days from receiving the House's criminal contempt for a woman named Rita Lavelle, 1983, for a jury to then indict her. She fought the charges to trial, and the jury found her not guilty. So yeah, okay. So 8 days, full criminal trial. That case probably took a year to go work its way through. I have no idea. But nothing happened. Nothing came of it. So they know that, right? They know how this is going to go. What happens next? The business meeting next week, first in a series of steps. We sort of read through this. The report is going to be referred over to the House. So then if the vote succeeds, it's going to go over to Nancy Pelosi. She's going to certify the report. She's going to send that over to the U.S. Attorney in D.C. Then they're going to bring the matter before a grand jury. Grand jury then is going to make its decision. Now, for those of you who do not know, a grand jury is a proceeding that takes place behind closed doors. And so, Bannon and his lawyers are... They typically are notified of it, but it's a tricky area. Whether they're involved in anything that happens after that moment. But then the question is, okay, if they brought this in front of a grand jury, would a grand jury even indict Steve Bannon? Who knows? Any individual found liable for this could be fined between face a fine, 1 to 12 months in prison, but it's again rarely invoked. It sounds serious, but it's probably not. Another example of this came back during the McCarthy eras. 1950s, one of these, a criminal contempt proceeding was actually overturned by the Supreme Court, went up on appeal. Justice Department has typically declined to even prosecute these criminal contempt referrals. And so is this actually going to go anywhere? I don't know. Here is what Steve Bannon's arguments are. We'll take a quick look at this. Steve Bannon's lawyer, guy by the name of Robert J. Costello, sent a letter back over to the House Select Committee. Remember at the start of this segment, we were diving into what Benny Thompson wanted out of Steve Bannon. And he wrote a letter, and he wrote this big addendum, and we've gone through it many times here. We're not going to go through it again, but they wanted everything: emails, phone calls, records, this person, that person. The list was like 20 pages long. And so as soon as Steve Bannon's lawyer got that, he fired this thing back off on October 13th. So this would have been yesterday. Remember, they were due in front of Congress for the depot today, and they didn't do that. But this letter did go back out from Steve Bannon's lawyer, Robert Costello, back over to the Select Committee yesterday. Benny Thompson was the author, the recipient of this letter. So Attorney Costello says, "I'm writing on behalf of Steve Bannon. You sent me a letter. You asked for a bunch of stuff." He says, let me tell you this. As an initial matter, your use of the word defiance here, Benny, is inappropriate. Mr. Bannon's position is not in defiance of your subpoena. Rather, Mr. Bannon noted that President Trump's counsel stated that they were invoking executive and other privileges, therefore directed us not to produce anything. Mr. Bannon testified on 3 prior occasions before the Mueller investigation, the House Intelligence Committee, and the Senate Intelligence Committee. In each of those instances, Trump waived the invocation of executive privileges, and Mr. Bannon testified, right? He said, so I'm not being defiant at all. In fact, I've been very compliant if you're Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has appeared in front of Congress many times. Senate twice. House. Yeah. House Intelligence Committee, Senate Intelligence Committee. He's been all over the place. Why? Because Donald Trump didn't invoke the executive privilege. Now, Donald Trump is invoking this, and we talked about this on a prior show. We explained very clearly who is the holder of the privilege. Okay, it's just like with anything else. Talk about, doctor-patient confidentiality, doctor-patient privilege, attorney-client privilege, attorney-client confidentiality. The holder is the beneficiary of the privilege, okay? If you're a patient and you say, "Doctor, I got to tell you this thing, but I want to keep it very confidential. I've got this, problem somewhere on my body. Don't really know what happened there." Doctor says, "It probably happened because you were out there doing the thing that you do." And you go, "Oh yeah, well, I can't let somebody, in my life find out about that." And you tell the doctor, "Well, you're going to keep this in confidence," and right, it's all protected. Now, if you, as the person who's the beneficiary of that confidentiality, if you want to go tell that other person, "Hey, something happened here and I got to tell you about what happened," you're free to do that, right? Because it's your privilege. You get to waive that and go communicate about those things. But if your doctor picked up the phone and said, "Guess what? Somebody just left my office and I got to tell you what happened here," right? That is a breach because the doctor doesn't hold the privilege. In this case, Trump holds the executive privilege. He's invoking it. Bannon is complying with it. Now, if you want to say that the executive privilege doesn't apply to Bannon, that's a separate argument. But Trump holds the executive privilege. It was the executive branch. Bannon was there at the privilege, at the pleasure of the president during these conversations as an advisor. As recently as today, counsel for President Trump, Justin Clark, informed us the president is in fact exercising his executive privilege. Therefore, he has directed Bannon not to produce documents or to testify until the issue of executive privilege is resolved. Your committee has the right to challenge that and go fight that. Go fight the invocation of that privilege if you want. But this is an issue between the committee and President Trump's counsel, not Mr. Bannon. He's not required to respond at this time. He cites a case over in the Commission on the Judiciary versus McGahn, that's 2019, says the president can certainly identify sensitive information that he deems subject to executive privilege, and his doing so gives rise to a legal duty on the part of the aide to invoke the privilege on the president's behalf, when in the course of his testimony, he is asked a question that would require disclosure of that information. Right? And look, and this is the same privilege that the Biden administration is going to invoke when they're in hot water over this. So the fact that they're okay with sort of eliminating one of the tools that the executive, and look, I'm for accountability and transparency to the end of the earth, not for political prosecutions or political manipulations. I'd love to know what happened with January 6th, but I got a lot of questions for Nancy Pelosi, why she was on the phone with General Milley. I have a lot of questions for Muriel Bowser, why she declined to have the National Guard there one day before January 6th on January 5th. A lot of questions for the Sergeant at Arms and the four police officers who paraded themselves in front of Congress and made it seem like they were evacuating dead bodies out of Fallujah. I'd love to hear from all those people if we had an actual independent investigation, I would be all for it. But that's not what we have here. We have another political prosecution because they cannot get rid of Donald Trump, and it's driving them nuts. They already tried once when he was in office. They're trying it again now that he's out of office. Let's finish this. It says, until such time as you reach an agreement with President Trump, Mr. Bannon is not going to be producing any of these documents. He's going to revisit his position if President Trump's position changes or if a court rules on this matter. Mr. Bannon's communications with Trump at issue are well within the scope of presidential communications and the deliberative process of executive privileges. You can take a look at these cases. This one from 1997 says the presidential communications privilege covers communications made or received by presidential advisors in the course of preparing advice for the president, even if those communications are not made directly to the president. Right? You have layers of executive privilege. The president runs the U.S. stinking government. He can't have direct conversations with everybody involved. So everything that is coming up the chain of command is protected. Another case here, Coastal States Gas, this was out of 1980, out of the D.C. Circuit, finds that deliberative process privilege also applies to recommendations, draft documents, proposals, suggestions, other subjective documents which reflect personal opinions of the writer, rather than of the policy or the agency. Doesn't even have a conclusion there. Very truly yours. Those are the two cases. Have a look at them. We're not showing up tomorrow, and they didn't. Good for them. Absolutely shouldn't have. Now, this is all going to come back around, right? The Biden administration is going to use this as well. They're going to have a bunch of stuff that they don't want to ever talk about again, and they're going to use all of the executive privilege rules. And these rules exist for a reason. Okay, if I'm representing a client, if somebody comes in and says, yeah, I actually did murder that person, I go, oh, well, that sucks. I guess we're going to have to figure out what to do about that problem, aren't we? Yeah, we are. That is a protected conversation. Why? So I can have the full ability to go and do my job, which is protecting the presumption of innocence, which is ensuring due process, which is making sure that the tyrannical government that we're always battling against doesn't violate my client's rights. But if I can't have protected conversations with him, our working relationship evaporates immediately. If a prosecutor or some judge or some stupid congressional committee can just create itself of my political enemies. Let's say we have a select committee on prosecutors that say, oh, we don't like murderers. Rob, you're representing a murderer, so we're going to haul you into court and we're going to force you to tell us everything that he told you. And I go, I'm not going to do that. I will never do that. Why? Because it is protected information. It's a sacred conversation that happened there. We can't have a functional working relationship without that. That, of course, it applies to executive agencies, including the presidency, which is exactly why this is not, in my opinion, going to go anywhere. They're going to refer it over to the DOJ. DOJ is going to go, oh, sorry, shouldn't have done this stupid little clown show that you have out there in Congress, Benny and Liz Cheney. Donald Trump reported on this today, says the January 6th Select Committee is composed of radical left Democrats, true, and a few horrible rhino Republicans, also true. It's looking to hold people in criminal contempt for things relative to protest, when in fact they should hold themselves in criminal contempt. I can't read it because he starts going off into the election stuff. All right, well, so that's Donald Trump there for you. Oh, my goodness. I probably should have read that before I clipped it, but, you know, I got excited. Let's see what else you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if you have any thoughts on the Bannon issue. We've got one from Thunder7, says nothing will come out of this partisan Trump-hating group of lunatics. But a question for you, Rob. Oh, Biden waived executive privilege, but how can he do that when Trump did not waive it? Will be interesting if Project Veritas now files to get Joe Obama's political records, which are kept under seal in Delaware. He has waived privilege. What will they find in his papers, I wonder? It's a good question. Yeah, and so we're talking about sort of two separate issues here. We've got, it's a great distinction here, Thunder7, but I think what we're talking about is the National Archive records. So there's two issues working their way through on the January 6th stuff. Number one, they want testimony from Trump's advisors, Bannon, Kash Patel, other people. That's going to be protected. There are different types of privilege as well. So, you know, we saw administrative privilege, executive privilege. So they're saying all of that is going to be protected by executive privilege. The issue that I think you're talking about are the records from the National Archives. And I think there's very good argument that one administration can't waive that on behalf of another administration, because, as I said, the holder of the privilege is the only person, in my opinion, who can waive that. So here, now, if the Biden administration is really open with this, if they say, yep, everything's fair game, go into the National Archives, Nancy Pelosi, bring in a wheelbarrow for all I care, have fun, go through all of Trump's records, you can do that. And if they allow that to happen, I mean, they actually sort of open the doors and they don't, as an administration, stop any of that access, it's going to come back to bite him the next time this comes down the pike. As soon as the Republicans are in charge, they're just going to authorize the opening of the doors for all of the Biden stuff. I would guess. You would expect. But then, of course, you have to remember that you're dealing with mostly emasculated Republicans. Anywhere you look. Jeremy says, I still don't understand how Congress can get away with conducting witch hunts against their political opponents. Something needs to be done to keep Congress in their own lane. In my opinion, they are abusing their power. I think a lot of people would agree with you on that, Jeremy. Someone is here, says, sorry, but Mr. Bannon cannot refuse. It's the guillotine for all of Trump supporters. That was from someone. Don't know a name on that one. We've got Sergeant Bob says, the out-of-control Dems, including Cheney, are setting quite a precedent for when the big red wave takes over in a year. Get those impeachment party forms filled out, folks. That was a long time ago, Sergeant Bob. I'm glad you remember that. Multiple select committees, special counsels, etc. The Trojan horse will explode. Yeah, I mean, it's like, but again, you gotta understand, the Republicans really don't like to play like the Democrats. They just kind of roll over and acquiesce and then bitch and moan about it everywhere you look. Let's go. Brandon says, what does pleading the Fifth Amendment do regarding congressional subpoenas, and can stop being forced to give a subpoena? Not why I'm not surprised at this political prosecution. Let's go, Brandon. So it's so I understand what you're saying. So if Steve Bannon were hauled into court and, demanded or testified and didn't invoke executive privilege, I think at that point in time, if he thought that a question that was being asked of him was, kind of testimonial in nature, would be something that if he responded to it might incriminate him, then he could invoke that Fifth Amendment right. Now, there's a lot that can happen after that, right? Immunity deals and all sorts of other stuff that can get complicated, but we're not there yet, right? He's saying, I'm not even going to go into court. I don't even have to invoke that because there's another layer of protection that stops that obligation from being necessitated. Ghost Gunner says, how can people talk about 1/6 like this with a straight face? How do they think we are all brain dead? I see it coming from the left zombies all the time, and I always roll my eyes. How is that helping, quote, unity? This whole thing is a giant joke, hypocritical at best. We need a new plague. Well, we're going to get one. Don't worry about that. Yeah, I mean, we've got one coming. They've got a whole... you think this is going away anytime soon? No, of course not. Three Girlies is here, says, even if they charge Bannon or anyone else with contempt, it is just going to end up in the courts. Remember how the courts backed Don McGahn for executive privilege? I really believe the courts will still allow for executive privilege. I believe the judges understand that if executive privilege is taken away, it's going to weaken the presidency. They can refer for prosecution, investigate all they want. Adam Schiff is a pompous, bloviating gas bag. He is the epitome of fake it until you make it. Yeah, and he's not even that good at it. It's like, how did this guy get elected? I don't know, but, people like him out in California, I guess. He's very California-y. We have Super Iron Bob says, Glenn Greenwald recently posted about how the legal precedent for the 1/6 committee's ability to compel private citizens when using the subpoena power just to find out about data and not in the effort to write the laws is explicitly what prior precedent says they are barred from doing. That is what his upcoming article goes in depth about on the topic. Might be an interesting read for those who are interested. Yeah, I love Glenn Greenwald. I follow him. I think I subscribe to his Substack or something. Definitely Twitter, but yeah, he does good work. We have, sorry, Rob, can you move an inch to the right to cover the background light? It's a beautiful lamp. It's just slightly distracting with the light, like that. It sort of gives me that glow effect, doesn't it? Yeah, I suppose I could change that. Let's see. Let's see if you like this better. We'll just turn that down a quick smidge. How's that? Oh yeah, that's a little bit better. A little less distracting. Isn't that nice? Sorry about that. We'll get that corrected in the future. Let's see. Another question came in here from Mayor Bowser. Says, those videos of Antifa being bussed into Washington that night, before me and meeting with them are all fake. Oh, it's Mayor Bowser. Oh, Muriel Bowser from D.C. So are the emails between Nancy and myself coordinating how many FBI informants would be there, how we're going to take a cut of the Capitol Police that day. All fake, 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 fake. And the videos of Antifa dressing up in MAGA gear, those are all fake too. Trust me, I'm telling the truth. I don't believe you, Mayor Muriel Bowser. Maybe we should have a select committee hearing and call you in there. Former LEO says, I can't wait until the Republicans take over the House and the Senate so they can have the January 6th select committee and set up their own subpoenas for all the Democrats in D.C. Says payback is a female canine. We have Sergeant Bob says, the Dems are just wolfing. This is a term from my South Side of Chicago days. Means a bunch of posturing, loud insults, body language, full of sound and fury, but signifying nothing. Like peacocks. Just blah. Wolfing? Yeah, but they're kind of like peacocks too. Wolfing. I like that. I've never heard that one. That's Sergeant Bob. I think, peacocking is something I've heard. Look 2G says Schiff has his hands all over his political opposition and his investigations seem extremely dubious. Do we have to wait to vote him out, or is there another way to remove him? Maybe like a Newsom recall. Well, he's in the House, so every 2 years you get another crack at it, and he should be coming up here pretty soon. Is that going to matter? No, he's from California. Nancy Pelosi is here, says, silly Rob, by dragging this out for a week, we get the attention of the news media that much longer so they can sell it to the public once again just how dangerous this insurrection really was. It was really traumatic event. Monster One says, I'm not so optimistic as some. I think their fear of a red wave will only make them go harder after the 6th. Bannon is the first of the members of Congress next. It would not surprise me if they tried to remove people like Cruz or Hawley. I don't think they have the political willpower. The political backing to do that. I just don't think the country's there. People are so upset about all of their own problems right now that I don't know that they're going to get a lot out of this. Vientikis says, I wonder what else would get revealed from other past presidents if we took away executive privilege. Probably a lot. And I'd be very curious what's in there. I think a lot of it's mostly bad. Jumpin' Jeff says, hi, Rob, what do you think is scarier, a small blue wave that takes power surreptitiously or a real red wave that creates a united people's front that dominates the political scene unchecked? Dominates the political scene unchecked. Well, honestly, it's a loaded question. I don't know what type of red wave you're talking about. If it's, the mainstream Republicans, if it's a bunch of the current iteration of Republicans, I don't see much of a difference there, honestly. There is, right? Like, look what Joe Biden is doing. It's been a disaster. But the Republicans, they were basically asleep for the last 18 months. I've not seen any one of them do anything other than just sort of acquiesce, roll over, let all of these government entities just gobble up power. Happened in my local state, happened at a federal level. So, I look at the Republicans like, okay, Mitch McConnell going to solve all this for us? Okay. What do you got? Ted Cruz? Josh Hawley? These people? They're going to lead the Republican Party, into something meaningful? No, they're all just big government, light blue Democrats. I don't have any hope there at all. So, what I would like to see, honestly, is everybody to just recognize that everything is just no longer functional. I'm more interested in people finally recognizing and just becoming disaffected with their federal government, because the government can't solve all of your life's problems for you. So if you're gonna be a Democrat, and you're gonna, well, they're not giving me what I want. Maybe the Republicans will give me what I want. Right? All of those finally need to realize the government can't give you everything that you want. It's not how it's not going to function that way. Too many promises. We're seeing what's happening all around us when you go down that rabbit hole. Don't know if I answered that question, but I'm pretty disaffected with both parties. So I'm more interested in seeing a return to local governance, a return to local control, less federal encroachment. And I don't think any party is on the side of that, unfortunately. Monster One says, since when do authoritarians care about the populace? They don't. They care about themselves. We're seeing that every single day. Those were amazing questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, let's give some shout outs before we jump into the next segment. We've got over on Rumble, we've got F5 Tornado says, "Well, stop complaining about YouTube and just come over to Rumble already." We might. Yeah, we might. We have Southern Bix also in the house. Says, "So celebrities can talk about cutting off Trump's head, but Bannon can't be a journalist on the right." I guess. And I guess that's the standard now. We also have Vedicastrology. Says, "I can't believe they're still going on with this. The gig is up. The only insurrection was the one set up by the FBI and Pelosi Millie." Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see what's happening over on locals. We have Geomancy Game says, "Rob, do you play any instruments?" It's a good question. It's a good question. I actually do play a little guitar. I'm not any good at it, and I just opened it up, my guitar, for the first time in probably 8 months last weekend. And my fingers are still sore from it. So I need to start playing around with it a little bit more. It's very therapeutic. I enjoy it. But I don't play it enough. That was from Geomancy Games. Over there, we also have T. Feldman. I'm Not Gas. Jack Elias in the house. And other people are chatting away. Joey Bondolero, hello and shout out to Hoof Hearted is in the house. That's a new one. Good to see you, Hoof. And on YouTube, shout out to Zulu. We've got Playing Hooky Sarah Brown. John Halgren's over there as well. We have Lynn Job, John Mann, and Playing Hooky Molly Jonty, and V, all over on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for keeping the show nice and lively. And shout out to my friends over on Twitch. You know, I don't have the Twitch screen up. That's my next iteration here, is so that I can see what's going on in Twitch also. But I have to, I'm very delicate. I have to ease into these things. All right. So let's go on into our last segment of the day. Oh, yeah. A New York Police Department officer, she was off duty, but walked in on what seems like maybe a lover's quarrel, a lover's triangle. Something complicated was going on, but the off-duty New York Police Department officer shot and killed what seems to be her girlfriend and her lover. This happened late last night. We have a headline over from the New York Times showing us this picture of this woman. Her name is Yvonne Wu. She is a police officer from the New York Police Department. She was taken into custody late on Wednesday night, admitted to fatally shooting a woman whom she encountered in her girlfriend's Brooklyn apartment, shooting the girlfriend as well. So shot the woman who was in the girlfriend's apartment and the girlfriend. Officer described by police as a 31-year-old, been with the department for 5.5 years, most recently assigned to the Brooklyn precinct. She was off duty when the shooting occurred. And so, whoa, off-duty police officer goes over to her girlfriend's apartment in Brooklyn, walks in there. Girlfriend is with another woman. Off-duty officer pulls out a gun. Question is, was it her service weapon? Shoots the girlfriend and her lover. Presumably that's what was going on here. Not ideal, not good. Thoughts and prayers go out to the family of the victim. But let's take a look at the scene. This was what was taking place after the shooting occurred out in Brooklyn.
This is scary. Yeah. I've never in all my life lived to had something like this happen.
Yeah, this moment doesn't happen to me.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, he's actually sitting there.
Is he? Yeah. Listen, it's got to be something pretty bad. Because there's crime scene tape. There's 8 cop cars. There's got to be something bad that happened in that house. I think, I don't know.
I've seen him going in there, sir.
You know,
All right. Could you hear the people in the background? I think it's something big. I think something big was going on there. Yeah, they got like 7 cop cars around here, and they're putting crime tape all over the place. Yeah, it was big. A police officer shot 2 people, killed one of them. You can see this is her being handcuffed. Her name is Yvonne Wu, arrested after allegedly shooting both her ex-girlfriend, Jenny Lee, and Lee's new girlfriend, Jamie Lang, October 13th, as yesterday. And so these are New York police officers arresting a New York police officer for murder and attempted murder. Ooh, that is a spicy one, isn't it? Here's a different angle of this video from a witness. Shows Wu, that's her face there, obviously having a really hard day. we have some more background. Assistant Chief Michael Kemper, speaking at a news conference, said the shooting was being treated as a homicide. We've got several different clips from the press conference from Chief Michael Kemper, and we're going to go through those. Said that the officer was being held, has been very calm, collected, very forthcoming, meaning she is talking her guts out. Says that in telling colleagues they responded to the scene, what happened. Simply put, she confessed, says Chief Kemper. That's all I'm going to say. Slain woman was identified by police officials as Jamie Lang of Manhattan. Referring to the officer and the woman whose apartment the shooting was in, says, we believe they had an intimate relationship. Yikes. Oh, man, that is no good. Did a little bit of digging on the police officer in question. This is Yvonne Wu, and you can see, if you go over to the New York website, they've got this database that keeps good tabs on all of the different officers. And if you search for her name, you'll see that there was a complaint that was filed. This was back on October 22nd, 2018. So officers get complaints, lawyers get complaints, doctors get complaints. I'm sure you get complaints. Everybody gets complaints. When I was cleaning pools, I got a lot of complaints all the time. There are leaves in my pool. I said, well, I haven't been there in 4 hours. There's weather outside. Things blow around. Why are you calling me? Anyways, so people get complaints. But Yvonne Wu had an issue here back on August 22nd. Abuse of authority. Entry of premises. Well, let's see what this is all about. So there was one complaint. Nothing was substantiated, but there at least was an allegation saying that it was an abuse of authority, entry of premises. And so got filed. Somebody filed this against her back in, looks like 2018. The complaint was ultimately withdrawn. Why might that be? Who knows? But that is what happened. More data here. The officer was in custody. She was waiting in the girlfriend's apartment in the neighborhood when the girlfriend, 23, and the second woman, 24, they arrived sometime in the late afternoon. The officer in custody was waiting in the apartment. The shooting then happened sometime after that, after they got there, prompting several 911 calls. Responding officers found the girlfriend on the bedroom floor, second woman on the floor in the living room, Chief Kemper said. Girlfriend shot once in the torso, second woman shot at least once in the chest, he said. That woman was pronounced dead. The girlfriend was expected to recover. Interesting. So girlfriend alive, other girl not alive. We believe all three parties knew each other. Asking whether the officer used her service weapon, the police officer says there's a very good chance that in fact was the case. Let's check in on the press conference. This was from basically immediately after the shooting took place. They rolled up a van. New York Police Department having to communicate about what happened here.
The information I'm about to give is preliminary. And is subject to change as this incident just happened a couple of hours ago. But today at approximately 5:00 p.m., multiple 911 calls were made in regards to shots fired and a person shot at a residential location just behind me on 19th Avenue and 79th Street, which is located in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Patrol officers from the 6-2 precinct responded and were met by a female in front of the location who told the officers that she shot someone and that person's inside the house. The patrol officers eventually gained entry into the residence and came upon two female victims who were shot. One female, a 24-year-old, was found lying in the living room area, and the second female, a 23-year-old, was found lying on the floor in the bedroom. It was at this time that EMS was requested to the location, and the officers began CPR efforts. Both females were removed via EMS to Maimonides Hospital. The 24-year-old was shot to her chest, possibly more than one time, and she was pronounced deceased, unfortunately, at 5:53 p.m. this afternoon. The 23-year-old was shot once to her torso, and she is expected to survive.
All right, so yeah, tough situation. Obviously, somebody snapped and somebody's dead as a result of it. Let's see what else we got from the press conference. So this is more description of the shooter. Let's check this out.
Determined was who were responsible for the shooting is a 31-year-old female who was a 5.5-year veteran of the NYPD. She is a police officer assigned to a Patrol Borough Brooklyn South precinct. She's currently in our custody and is at a local hospital for an evaluation.
All right, so we heard most of that. Nothing really new here. That was the same formal statement that he read. No big surprises there. A lot of that was covered in the news. Let's see. We have another question, though. This one was about the service weapon. Obviously, it's a police officer. She was off duty, of course, but what weapon did she have? Was she using an official NYPD weapon? I mean, do they know anything about gun control? All right, here is a question about that.
Determined.
Was her service weapon the weapon that she used in the shooting?
As far as the weapon used, I can't definitively tell you if it was a service weapon, but what I can tell you is that there is ballistic evidence recovered on the scene, which includes a firearm. It's a very good chance it is a service weapon, but I can't commit to that.
Yeah, it's a good chance that there is a service weapon, but can't really commit to that. So guessing that it was. All right, we've got one other clip here. We'll jump into some questions. I know it's a short segment, but he's talking about modus operandi. What's the MO? Why are they investigating this in the first place? Are they going to treat this as a homicide? Yeah, they are. This is what he says.
Ship with a female. That female is alive. There's another female in the equation who was shot and pronounced deceased. I hope, was I clear?
Yes.
To everyone,
And you
so you
believe the
understand?
23 and the 24-year-old may have been having something on the side that the officer was not aware of?
That's a possibility, and that's something that we're going to look into as this investigation moves forward, yes.
What is the officer's name and possible charges?
We're not going to release the name right now. As the hours progress, DCPI will release that to you.
But suffice to say, the officer you'll be charging this, she's confessed to a homicide.
Yeah, like I think I said in my statements, this case is being treated as a homicide case.
Okay, folks.
How many shots?
All right, so that was it. Now, yeah, homicide case. She kind of sounds like she might have even been lying in wait, right? Got to that apartment first. Don't know if it was an ex-girlfriend. Didn't see any exes in there. Sounds like it might have been a current girlfriend who had somebody over. That might have been a lover or somebody else. Whatever happened, off-duty police officer was not happy about what she saw. Walked in there, shot. It sounds like the third party, and then left the girlfriend alive. So we're looking at a murder, attempted murder, criminal trespass, all of that other stuff, multiple felonies, and it's not good. And we have a dead person, so not ideal. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Got a couple questions in here, looks like, before we wrap up for the day. We've got Sergeant Bob. That was on the last segment, says, that was a very nice quote from John Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you know the quote. Vientikis says, this is just a regular whodunit. Oh, gosh. Vientikis says, this is just a regular whodunit. Can't resist. Just deal with it. I did it. Vientikis. I said it. Sergeant Bob says, bozo no-no has happened now and then in traditional relationships. Now, with alternate relationships, it is not unexpected. Service weapon is irrelevant. Arrest proper for sure. You're right about the fact that the service weapon is irrelevant, Sergeant Bob. It's just a fun thing that I like to needle over, obviously. Right? I'm a defense lawyer. I have to kind of needle the popo sometimes. That's all. It is. And maybe I shouldn't do that because there's a dead person here, but, let's see. Another one from Sergeant Bob says, happened in Bensonhurst. Not related, but look up Bensonhurst spelling bee. All right, I will. That's from Sergeant Bob. I did a spelling bee as a young man. Didn't go so well. But what can you do? Antifa folks, the spokesperson is here, says, just another peaceful double homicide. Nothing to see here. I'm sure Kamala has already bailed her out already. Anything negative said about the fine officer is homophobic and racist. Leave her alone. Allow her to do her job in the NYPD. That's from an Antifa spokesperson. Man, that is a really complex statement from Antifa. I can't really make much sense of that. Leave her alone. Let her do her job in the NYPD. She's Asian, though. I don't think that they're on... it's hard to tell where they're at on the sort of the hierarchy. It's a weird time we're living in. I think BLM only cares about BLM. I don't think they care about Asians. I don't know. I don't even know what they believe in anymore. We went on their website and tried to figure it out. It's impossible to do so. We have another one from Thunder 7 says, Rob, As a defense lawyer and on the opposite end of the police force, how would you approach her defense? Insanity? Do crimes of passion still exist? In Italy, it was not considered a crime if the husband caught his wife with a lover and killed them until very recently. Just wondering how you would deal with it. Thunder 7. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the first thing that I would encourage her to do, of course, is not talk to the cops. She did that. Sounds like she just walked in and said, oh, I shot them both. I was upset about whatever. And so that's going to be a hard thing to do. Insanity, something like that. If a person then suddenly admits to everything, no, I thought about it. I was very upset. We broke up. I thought that maybe I would go over there to talk to her. And I saw there was something else in the house, or I saw something on Facebook. And so I decided I was going to go confront her about it. I got to her apartment. I was there, and they walked in, and they were together, and I just snapped into a moment of rage, and I shot him. Okay, well, there's a lot of premeditation there. It sounds like you remember it. It doesn't sound like it was a moment of insanity. It sounds like you knew exactly what you're doing. Insanity is something like, you are literally under the compelling, you've been compelled by some other force that is totally outside of it's like actually insane, right? And so, first of all, I don't practice in this jurisdiction. I don't practice in New York, so it's hard for me to speculate on the specifics of the insanity defense there. But if somebody is aware of what they're doing, if they know they did it and they understand the consequences and they're remorseful after the fact, insanity is not the right defense there. If she acknowledged it, if she admitted to all this stuff, really what you're hoping for is a mitigation case where you are just showing, the long history of mental stressors that this person was placed under. You certainly go back to her time as a police officer, right? You're a defense lawyer. You beef that up. She's a public servant. She's got a history of doing amazing things. And you sort of make it less about the crime and more about the person, right? You beef that up. She's going to go to prison for a long time. She shot and killed somebody, almost killed somebody else. But it's going to be, a lot less. And so it's a case of negotiation more than anything from what we know right now. Right, unless there is something else going on, that's probably the only way that she's going to get good representation. Not ideal. Geomancy Game says, I've been cheated on, treated like crud from exes, been divorced, but I've never been so mad or upset at any of them that would cause me to kill them. I've never experienced the heat of the moment or the passion crime, so I guess I don't have much of an opinion on this. May they rest in peace. My heart goes out to all of them. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Geomancy Games. It's a tragedy. It's a tragic thing that happened there. And so we want to keep that in mind. Rob, this is from Jeremy Matrita, says, Rob, relationships are not worth killing for. If your spouse lover wants to find someone else, let him go. We can only control our own actions. If someone decides to stray from the relationship, it is selfish to take offense and try to kill them. Yes, it can be sickening to have this happening in one's relationship, but it's best to face the facts and examine one's own life that may have contributed to the situation. Even if one lives a perfect life, other people's actions are still out of your control. Jeremy, that's beautiful, man. You should put that in a book. I love that. I'm not being, facetious about it. I love it. I think it's true. We all have egos, and it's important to disconnect yourself from those egos, from those voices in your head, right? That's not who you are. That internal dialogue that you have going on every day, it's just a small subset of who you are. There's a lot more to it. And once you start to sort of recognize that, and you recognize that other people have that going on, and you recognize that it's really not personal, that other person has something that they're dealing with, I think it can take a lot of the pain and angst out of your life. And I think that what you shared with us is a very articulate way of saying it. So thanks for sharing. I'm Not Gas says, I'm sure Salon will find a way to blame the white patriarchy. It's true. It's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, I'll have to mull that over and figure out how I contributed to that murder. Perry Masonary says, Rob, you know that thong. Ask not, sorry, but having fun. What? That's from Perry Masonary. Oh, my goodness. We have John Halgren says, does this make the news is she wasn't a cop? If she wasn't a cop. Does this make the news if she wasn't a cop? Oh. That's a good question. Probably not. Right? Maybe it would as a shooting. I don't know. But yeah, definitely it's more interesting because she's a cop. Monster One says, Rob just went full Biden. You never go full Biden. I don't even know what I did, but I'm going to have to rewind the tape. Officer right here says, chuckling in 48% spousal abuse rate. So that's a dig. Not a dig at any of our retired officers, but somebody's pointing out the fact that police officers have a pretty high spousal abuse rate. I'm Not Gas says we love our former law enforcement officers on here. All right, I'm trying to keep the peace. I'm trying to bring unity across the sides here. We have I'm Not Gas says I placed second in my elementary school spelling bee. How's it feel to be reading the comment of your superior? I bow to thee, I'm Not Gas. You crush me. I mean, first of all, I'm going to have to probably call my counselor, my therapist, as soon as I get off here. I have to find one first, but you have put me into a state of PTSD as a result of that very, very public burn. I'm Not Gas crushed it in second grade. Me, not so much. It wasn't a good deal. It wasn't good. Christiana says maybe she thought her girlfriend was being raped. I mean, that's a decent defense anyway. Yeah, I mean, if she would have concocted something like that. But sounds like she didn't. Sounds like she just said, no, yeah, I shot her. I mean, I just shot her. I was pissed at what I saw. I can't believe that she dumped me and she's with this other gal now. So I shot her and, got to deal with that now. Vientikis says, I often analyze the anger people get over finding out that a person they're close they chose to be with in comparison to one more time. I often analyze the anger people get over finding out the person they chose to be with in comparison to the anger over people's political decisions. I look for how it relates to the concept of identity through choices. Yeah, so I can see that, right? It's sort of how people are identifying themselves. How do people connect themselves with something? You see this all the time. I'm a Raiders fan. I'm a Democrat. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. I'm pro whatever. Right? People put these labels on themselves, and oftentimes that includes in a relationship. No, I'm a wife. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a father. I'm a mother. I'm a this. I'm a that. Right? How do you define yourself? And when you're making those connections, it tells you a lot about what you value. And so I think that's an appropriate strategy. It's a nice heuristic, as they call them. That's from Vientikis. A. Hitler, a struggling artist in 1912, says, irreverent quick question. If you had to buy one painting, would you rather buy one of mine or Hunter's? This is from A. Hitler, struggling artist in 1912. Well, it just depends really on the costs. Hunter Biden's are $500,000. I can't afford that. That's a lot of money. I should probably get a deal with Burisma. Maybe then I could afford it. But so that, it has to be the struggling artist in 1912. It has to be. Struggling artist. I'd love to help a struggling artist. But I disavow genocide. We have Three Girlies says, I could see crime of passion if she had not already had a ding on her record for abusing her authority. Her past record shows she's willing to overstep her authority on the job. It means she'd be willing to do it as well off duty. The fact that she literally told the officers that responded, I don't see there being a good defense for her. Yeah, that's a pretty good take there, Three Girlies. It's going to be hard to defend, that case, other than to mitigate it, other than to just minimize it as much as possible, show all sorts of additional stressors so that, when you go into sentencing, right? When you go into a criminal case, there's two phases of a criminal case. One, did you commit the crime? Yes or no? Here, answer is yes. If there's a good argument that the answer is no, then you start to break up a bunch of defenses. Or if there's an argument that it's not provable, right? They have the burden of proof. They've got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. If they can't do that for some reason, if there's any question about anything in the case that would lead to criminal culpability, you attack those issues, and that deals with the first part of the case. But let's say you can't do that, right? You have a clear case like this. It's open and shut. She admits everything, and they probably have it all recorded, probably signed a bunch of statements, blah, blah, blah. She's a police officer, right? Sort of her training is going to come back into gear, and, got to cooperate and all this stuff. Going to follow the rules, be sort of coached through this whole thing by everybody at the police department. And that is, that makes that tough. So now we close off the first part of that case and we have what's called sentencing. So then at the second half, we know, was a crime committed? Is a person responsible for it? Yes or no? Yes. What happens after that? Sentencing. And when you go into sentencing, there's a range of sentences. And you've seen this, right? 15 to 25 years. Okay, well, if you have a woman like this, and you're her defense lawyer, you definitely don't want the 25, do you? So you have to work all the way down to get as close to that 15 as you can, which would be the statutory minimum that's allowable under the law. And one of the ways you do that is by mitigation. You show that there's all sorts of additional factors that would that are often codified in statutes, right? Like a person is young, a person was overcome by passion, a person even has maybe a substance abuse problem, all sorts of different things, and that will take it that range. So let's say you start at 20 years, it could go up to 25 if there are aggravating factors, and all the way down to, let's say, 15 if there are mitigating factors that minimize it. And so at that moment during the sentencing, you want to mitigate it down to the lowest tier possible. And that's what I was talking about. Maybe I should have explained it that way earlier. That's from Three Girlies. Good question. Sapper Jackson. Oh my goodness. Sapper Jackson's back in the house. Says, hey, sorry, Rob. Been busy. Missed a few episodes. That third shift life. But the Biden news, the pandemic, Loudoun County bathroom incident, socialist ideal takeovers. Time for a peacefully disobedient national divorce? Question mark. I'm open to the conversation. I mean, I'd be open to talking to some divorce lawyers about this, and I mean that. It's like, the federal government, they are not keeping up their end of the social contract. And so something needs to be done about that. Peaceful national divorce. Yeah, I'm open to the conversation. Any good nation state divorce lawyers? John Halgren is here, says, best show on YouTube. Sorry for the previous typo. Well, that's really nice of you, John. I appreciate you being here. It wouldn't be that good if you weren't here. And I mean that genuinely. You're a part of the show, my friend. Monster, as are all of you. Monster One says, you said, the quote, when trying to quote Kennedy. That was the full Biden. The thing. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. And you know what? It was perfectly typed out for me by Sergeant Bob. And I already clicked the next button, so I couldn't just read it. So I tried to botch it. Sergeant Bob says, I'm not gassed would get bottom in the Ben-Hurst spelling bee. Forget about it. And look at the spelling. It's all misspelled. See that? Oh, we've got some words being thrown around here now. Sergeant Bob versus I'm not gas. It's about to get rowdy over on locals. Mustang Jeff says, Rob, what if mom whoops me cuz, guess I deserved it. Haha, LOL, I learned it when I was young. Part of growing up. What if mom whoops me cuz Well, I don't know. Your mom whipped you, Mustang Jeff? Well, you probably deserved it. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. I don't know what your relationship is like with your mother, but young men can be a pain in the butt, especially a Mustang. Kareem says, I know I mentioned this all summer, but now I finally did it. I'm coming to you live today from the warm, beautiful, sunny beaches of Miami. This is from Kareem. What a beautiful country this is. I'm so happy to have finally done this, but at the same time, I'm sad because with those new mandates, this could be the last time ever I'm able to travel to this great country. That is from Kareem165 in the house. Sounds like he's landed, nestled up right in Miami, which is a beautiful place. Been there many times. Florida, becoming pretty attractive in a lot of different ways. Kareem, I'm glad you made it into the country. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Hopefully you're soaking it up, living in, a little bit of lavishness, right? Treating yourself well, taking good care of yourself. Treat yourself, as they say. Be Brave says, what about the fact that her girlfriend was injured and she didn't call for EMS, or did I miss that part? Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first phone calls came from the neighbors. There were like 5 different 911 phone calls. Pop, 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 5 gunshots go off. Everybody's on the phone calling 911. So I don't know if they would have made it there before she could have called EMS or how that all went down. It sounds like it was probably a horrific scene. The Asians are here. Oh, we got the whole demographic on the show. Says, let her go. We need reparations for all the, quote, hashtag Asian hate last year. Wow. We have the entire Asian community on the show right now. That's amazing. Sleepy Joe says, the girlfriend refused to get faxed, so it's justified homicide. It's too slow, Sleepy Joe. It's too soon, Sleepy Joe is what I meant to say. Jumpin' Jeff says, when we were talking about a peaceful divorce, what are we really talking about it? Alimony? I'm not paying anything back to them. I'm sick of it. That's why I want a divorce. I'm sick of paying taxes to these idiots. I'm Not Gas says, is Bob even able to weather the weather, rain or shine? Whoa! Whoa! My brain almost short-circuited with that. Let me try that again. Is Bob even able to weather the weather, rain or shine? Wow. That is a really complex statement. And I don't know. We'd have to ask Sergeant Bob about that. Almost pee the pants in fear says, I distinctly remember mom in the belt. That was in 65 and 66. You know what my mom used to make us do? I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. So first of all, she would give us a little slap on the hand, right? And I go like this, okay, what are you doing? Stop that. But then what she would do, and Mom, if you're listening, you remember this. She would, when my younger brother and I, Eric, he was 3 years younger than me, when we would get into it, right? You know, young boys, I'm the oldest of 3 boys. My middle brother, Joey, has Down syndrome. He's 1 year younger than me. My youngest brother, Eric, no longer with us, was 3 years younger than me and did not have Down syndrome. So it's me, Joey with Downs, and then my youngest brother, Eric. And so Eric and I used to always sort of, battle over protecting Joey. And so Joey would, be doing something, and Eric was a little bit younger, so he'd go and sort of mess with Joey. And then I was the big brother, so I'd go protect Joey from Eric, and we'd get into it and all this stuff. So Eric and I were always sort of competing. He was 3 years younger than me, very athletic, very smart, very competent. And so we were always, competing in things, soccer games and football games, like who got the most yards in a football game or who scored the most goals in a soccer game. You know how it is with boys. So my mom, when we would get into fights, she would make us sit on the couch, my younger brother Eric and I, and hold hands on the couch. I swear, it was the most humiliating thing of my life. We stopped fighting after that because we had to sit there and hold hands. And she'd come back in there and be like, no, you got 10 more minutes, just hold hands. It was humiliating. Oh my goodness. Anyways, it worked. We stopped killing each other all the time. We're like, I'm not going to sit there and hold your hand. This is ridiculous. And so, it's a pretty good tactic. But she didn't beat us with a belt, but she probably should have. We deserved it. Ty Livin says, love this show. Thanks for helping with the early hour and my hangover recovery. It's my pleasure, Ty Livin. Hopefully you recover nicely and well, because you got to get back on that train and get back out there and rage a little bit more. I'm glad you're here with us. We have another one from Sergeant Bob says, nothing personal, Miss Gast, but look up the Bensonhurst spelling bee. You'll see the humor of it all. Bensonhurst spells words a bit differently, with great apologies. Everybody's being so nice now. Well, that is amazing. Those were amazing questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have a couple questions that came in over from YouTube. K Bean dropped in a super chat, says, lean to the left, lean to the right, lean to the forward, and lean backward. Love your show, Rob. Love you back, K Bean. Thank you for that. Yeah, the lighting, I got to figure out what to do with that thing. But thank you for the support. Yesterday, Keith Brown sent in a super chat after the show was over. Says, absolutely love the way you dig into these current events. Exactly how I feel. What the hell is going on? Couldn't agree more. Says he's a fan for life. Don't change. I'm going to try not to, Keith. Going to do my best. Hold me accountable. I know you will. But those were some nice super chats over on YouTube. And one final one from Local says, who had the best grip, you or your brother? Well, I'm the older brother. I'm obviously stronger and more powerful and, faster, smarter, better at everything. So that's just how younger brothers are. To all you little younger brother punks out there, don't you forget it. So, all right, my friends, those were great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's make sure that we welcome our new members. We've got Sovereign Lion, who just joined up for the year, Sovereign Lion 90. We also had Lynn Fish. We had Germs, Sniper 275, Lau Patricia, Paula Revere, HSDNP. We've got who else? We've got Ty Livin in the house, Maxim 27, Unbridled Form, Avia Tricks, Burnt to a Crisp, and let's be fair, many people over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you're a supporter over there, then you can join us for our next monthly Locals meetup, Saturday, November 6th, 7 to 8 p.m. Otherwise, my friends, we're going to be back here tomorrow to do the show all again. And I hope you can join us. It's at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and for that one Florida man. Everybody else, have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.